Goedenavond, good evening, fellow South Africans and citizens of the world. And if you are considering emigrating from South Africa, you need to be out of the country by March 2021. And I'll tell you why. It's all about tax. The Draft Tax Law Amendment Bill, or TLAB, published by National Treasury at the end of July, contains a number of proposed changes which will have an impact on South African taxpayers, says Thomas Lobban, tax associate at Tax Consulting South Africa. One proposed amendment that has stood out is the disallowance of South Africans who have exited South Africa's tax base from withdrawing their retirement funds from the country until they are able to prove that they have been non-resident for tax purposes for an unbroken period of at least 3 years, he said. Now, you can imagine what the ANC will do with your pension fund over those 3-year period. Anyway, let's continue. Lobban said, "This is a drastic shift from the current legislative position, which allows South Africans who have financially emigrated and concluded the exchange control portion of this process to remove their retirement funds from South Africa once this is recognized by the South African Reserve Bank." He said that the frustration of expatriates is already bubbling over, with the general feeling that the government has placed a target on their backs for extra revenue collection. This suspicion may be warranted, with more legislated tax changes focused, placing an ever-increasing tax burden on them. The prevailing sentiment is that this now appears to simply be more of the same. Lobban said that the country has seen a drastic increase in South Africans formalizing their status as non-resident from both a tax and exchange control perspective by using the financial emigration process in recent years. Many had decided to withdraw their retirement funds from the country in favor of a more stable investment elsewhere, he said. Lobban said one of the primary drivers for this trend was the punitive tax measure implemented by government as from the 1st of March 2020, which reduced the foreign employment exemption available to South Africans living and working abroad to 1.25 million rand. He said this has resulted in a massive increase in South Africans ceasing their tax residency through this process, where they meet the requirements in order to avoid this tax regime. When done correctly, this has obviously been a very successful countermeasure. Lobban said that these legislative changes are thus viewed as an inadvertently transparent attempt by government to curb the outflows of funds in this manner, by changing the way in which South Africans can exit the tax net, rather than addressing the core issues which hamper effective revenue collection, such as corruption and lack of effective law enforcement. In the February 2020 budget speech, it was announced that the exchange control portion of financial immigration would be phased out by the 1st of March 2021 and replaced with a more complex or at least a more stringent process. Lobban said the proposed changes are expected to come into effect on the 1st of March 2021, according to the TLAB. This change will allow a person to withdraw their retirement funds from South Africa, where they have not been a resident for tax purposes, for an uninterrupted period of at least 3 years. The explanatory memorandum to the TLAB goes on to say that a new test should be inserted which will make provision for payment of lump sum benefits when a member ceases to be a South African resident. Lobban said presently a person may withdraw their retirement fund interests upon ceasing residency for both tax and exchange control purposes. Thus, financial emigration in its current form has been generally accepted as the most effective mechanism to cease one's residency under both dispensations. He went on to say, it would thus seem that government is far more interested in when a taxpayer ceases tax residency rather than exchange control residency, which is not at all surprising. Where a South African is living and working abroad and intends to withdraw their retirement funds from South Africa, they will have until the 1st of March 2021 to do so, before they need to wait a further 3 years and having their status for each year subjected to additional scrutiny, he said. From the perspective of South African expatriates, these changes are certainly not well received and have been viewed as an attempt by government to pick at low-hanging fruit for revenue, rather than fixing the real issues in question to make its aims more attainable, Lobban said. He went on to say it is obvious that the South African government is in a difficult position, with COVID-19 restrictions placing even further pressure on an already spiralling economy. Government needs to draw from every resource possible to collect and retain revenue, including, of course, retirement funds. He said, "It is not clear how these measures are meant to raise the level of confidence in the South African fiscus, especially with government's proposed investment of such retirement funds towards its failing public institutions, while itself not effectively bringing those responsible for large-scale corruption to book. While this proposed change to the tax legislation has not been well received, there is a light at the end of the tunnel for many taxpayers who may not qualify for financial emigration, such as those who rely on double tax agreement to cease tax residency," he said. He said, "Whether this change will mean that these taxpayers may now withdraw their retirement funds after 3 years remains to be seen." He concluded by saying, "Nevertheless, one thing is clear. It is in the taxpayers' hands now. South Africans abroad should act soon and act decisively if they intend to protect their earnings and long-term investments from being stuck in place, or accept the fact that the goalposts will likely shift once more." So the message is simple, guys. If you've got a pension fund in South Africa and you're overseas, you got to get it out by March 2021. Actually, by the end of February 2021. All right, guys, please remember to subscribe to be kept informed. Ring the bell for the updates. Please like this video. Please share this video. And above all, please stay safe. Bye for now.